Yes, hello, good afternoon. It's May 9th, 2024. Just reviewing another video, an update. As you can see, my lovely metal lathe is unchanged, untouched, and it's even collecting dust. Look, see the dust on it? See the dust on my compound. There's my bearing that has pre-used grease in it from the previous owner. Anyway, update. I filed a complaint with a known organization after a phone call to them. And they said, so I sent the complaint to them, and they're going to take it right to Amazon.com's headquarters in Seattle. The lady on the phone after my initial complaint, explaining briefly to her some of the things that had occurred over the sale of this piece of junk on my bench, that she thought it sounded serious, and she thought that that it warranted going for me to, she insisted that I file a complaint, and I did. And so really nothing has changed. There's the spindle, which indicates clearly, like I said, if you go on AliExpress and you look up new spindles for the W210V metal lathe, the photos there, and you can see that according to the photos of the new spindles, because apparently, folks, this lathe is apparently new. Okay, since it's apparently new, like the ones on AliExpress, the WM210V that they sell directly from AliExpress in China, then this spindle should represent a spindle with 0 marks on it showing use before it was sold to me. And actually, when you get a new lathe, I suggest to all people that buy this lathe or any other mini lathe on Amazon or eBay, it would be worth your while to take the spindles out. They're not that hard to take out, and check the surfaces of your spindle, because there shouldn't be 1 mark on your spindle, period, unless your lathe was sold to you used. The seller in this case, this lathe had a previous owner. Obviously, what I think happened is he detected the error in the tailstock sitting off the bed by 0.004, meaning you can't lock it down to the very little geographical area of the lathe bed, which actually locks it down, which is very tiny, which, as I said, is just this section here. The other section doesn't count because there's really nothing to grip to. It can't grip to this side of the bed. It can only grip to this side of the bed. So I think that the previous owner of this lathe, he also realized that the compound slide was, he probably took it off and checked it, and it's clicking on a table end to end, meaning it's warped. And so, you know, as a result of this, he sent the lathe back, but he had already taken this panel off to grease the lathe according to the manufacturer's instructions. And so what they did, they re-greased it, they repackaged it in a new box, and they sold it to me. Now, my suggestion here is that in the manual, the warranty is apparently determined by a company called Chester Company in the UK. And it says clearly in the manual that they are the decision makers requesting, or for buyers that request warranty parts on a wrongfully machined manufacturer part, which is a defect. So probably this lathe was probably sold in the UK. Usually, like for example, this ASC 365 International in Toronto distributes this lathe in Canada. Chester Company in the UK, probably it's a UK distributor, and retailer. They would have distributed this lathe in the UK. Okay, so somehow my belief is this lathe was repackaged, maybe in the UK by the buyer, sent back to the distributor Chester Company, and somehow this Chinese Canadian company in Toronto ordered a shipment and got part of the shipment from the warehouse of Chester Company in the UK, and this thing went on their inventory as new. It is not new. The spindle tells the story. Obviously, and this again I've proven in my other lathes, my other videos, because the bearings in the grease is blue, not lithium white. So that caused the bearings, as I said, my other lathes to heat up because there was no viscosity of lubricant between the bearing surfaces and the sides of the spindle. And also on the bottom, you can see the wear mark around the middle of the bearing surface, which stick out from the spindle slightly. And this one's really bad, the back one. And there's even wear here at this portion, because this is where the drive gear is slid over the spindle on the back here of the lathe. So I filed a claim because it's clear from the spindle that the lathe was not brand new, because the spindle would show up as clean as the lathe bed. You can see the lathe bed is pretty clean. There's no real scratches in it, and it looks brand new, but the spindle does not, which indicates, as I said, the original owner greased it up. He noticed that there was a gap in the tailstock surface, so this tailstock would not, and he noticed that it's sticking up on the other side. See the little square? It's not supposed to be doing that. And so he noticed this, and the compound slide, and there's a couple other little problems also with the lathe. And the other problem with the lathe is this dial here for the compound. It constantly sticks, no matter how much you adjust it. If you loosen off the nut in here to loosen it off a little bit, it still grabs. And with adjustments in these three bolts, doesn't matter. It's constantly grabbing. And this is the new compound. So what I noted was, if I undo these two bolts here and here, this is the one I ordered from AliExpress that's new. The other one is right there. And if I loosen these two screws and retighten them, this seems to, what's happening here is you have a bolt, you have a nut and bolt in here. You have two nuts here. So you've got two different surfaces clamping onto the lead screw for the compound. And it's hard to line this one up so that the screw inside turns smoothly, so you don't get this sticking point. Some guys live with it, and what they do is, these knobs are no good. So some guys put a long arm on them and stick the knob on the arm so that there's more distance to spin it, which eliminates the sticking. So I filed a complaint and with this agency, and I've sent them a ton of documentation. This matter of this lathe is bigger than they know. And also I wish to point out again that this knob here, like look, I noticed when I got the lathe, when I turned on, this was something probably that the first owner realized, is that he would turn the lathe on, turn this button, say on to full, and it should stop there. There should be resistance here so it can't move. But I had noticed since the day I bought it that the knob actually spins all the way around, just like that. And now it's not sticking at all. It's completely, So, when some people see these things, when these things appear on the product, the user, and the tailstock, of course, being out, the guy who would have bought this lathe obviously knows lathes and probably had one prior to this, a smaller one he wanted to upgrade. So he sent it back, and I ended up with it. And it, if it hadn't been for me to pull the tailstock because of the boss here, this piece here, this boss here, the chuck goes over that. This part of the boss was right on when I dialed it with my dial indicator, but this part here, this piece here was undermilled. So my chuck was, again, sliding up and down. Now, had that issue not, and maybe the original buyer also found his chuck to be out, he might have done a dial indicator test of the chuck and realized that the boss protruding from it for the chuck was undermilled by the factory. So he wouldn't have taken out the spindle, okay? If he had taken out the spindle when he found his chuck moving up and down out by over 3 thou when it spun in the center, which it shouldn't be doing, Those causes are either the jaws of the chuck are defective, causing one of the jaws not to close perfectly in line on the piece with the other two, which would more than likely be the case. Obviously with him, what he did, the same thing I did, he took off the chuck, first of all, he checked the chuck and it's out by 3 thou, but it's not the jaws. If the large surface, if this surface here, this is the surface, you put the indicator right on here between this gap and this hole here, between these two holes for the chuck jaws and also the wrench. You can just fit your indicator in between the two so it doesn't go into the hole or go into this hole. So he would have ran a test on this surface. That would tell him that the jaws were okay if this surface is out. If this surface was not out, okay, if this surface was within half a thou, okay, half a thou. If this is out by half a thou, then this would be out only by maybe a couple of hundredths of a thou, okay? So he probably tested this and saw that the chuck was out, okay? And now he would have known that the chuck, the circular milled chuck here was probably right on. So that would lead him right to the spindle, the boss here, this piece. So he probably did what I did. He took the chuck off, realizing it was out, and because the sides of the chuck were out, it wasn't the jaws. Okay, so the jaws were and the chuck were fine. So next he would do what I did. He would go first. He would do this piece here, the top of the spindle, and he would have found that that's right on, because I did. So that wasn't the problem. So the next thing he would do, this is the last thing he would want to find out, is it's the boss. So he probably took a vernier caliper, which I did. I did actually first. I checked the diameter of the boss here from this end to this end, in the middle. First, you got to find the middle first so you get the widest point. And I forgot to mention in my other videos, I did check with my 2 digital vernier calipers, and this boss, I distanced it, I locked the caliper, and I took the ends of the 2 points of the caliper, and I stuck them in the exact center of the chuck from end to end, and the spindle was too small. The spindle boss was milled too small for this chuck. It went in. My caliper tips fit in loosely in the middle, okay? Which means the chuck, as I said, was moving up and down like that. Very hard to see, but enough to put your work out. So he probably saw this, and he sent the unit back. The minute that he found out that the spindle boss here was under milled, there's no cure for that. The company would have to supply him a whole new spindle. Now, had he decided to keep the lathe and take the spindle out, he would have seen this telling him that he lubricated the bearings the wrong way or used the wrong lubricant. Okay, he would have known this for sure. Now, so that's because he greased it with the wrong grease. Like, look at the marks on there. I mean, gee whiz, you know. If this was a new lathe, and I say to you folks again, go to AliExpress. Okay, if you can get in there on Google or Chrome or Safari if you have an iPhone. You don't have to be a member or have the app. And just punch in, you know, W210V spindle, okay? And they're right there. You can see the pictures of them. You will not find those marks on new spindles. They just don't exist. And that, because this lathe is brand new, like, you know, you see that, like I said, you see the bed looks brand new, doesn't it? Well, yeah, it is. You're right. And it actually is quite accurate. And the way you see the bed here with no scratches, you can see how smooth it is. Okay, what shape it's in. This should look the same. Okay, so that's it. So I filed a complaint, and I got an email from Amazon, some guy named Vishal there. And this guy's really amazing. He was the last one I spoke with at Amazon on the phone before I filed a complaint with this agency. And he emails me yesterday asking me for the item number when he just talked to me the day before or 2 days before on the phone prior to my filing the complaint. He knew exactly who I was, and I already gave him the item number back then. It's just, so we're just going to see what happens. My position is that, and legally so, is that the seller has committed advertisement fraud by defrauding buyers of warranty parts, okay? And Amazon went along with that, okay? So, I'm stuck with this thing. See? There it is. I haven't touched it. You can see it's the same. I haven't been in here in a few days. Well, I was in here, actually, in my workroom. I was fixing our tent floor with some patches and some glue. So, I don't want to waste any more time. I'm going to upload this, so I just wanted to update people. And I asked this agency update. I've told them, I'm fed up with trying to send pictures. I've sent pictures to Amazon of the spindle, for example. Made no difference. I sent the spindle photo at their request, and no response. Okay, this is a used lathe. It's been used. This proves it, and I demand my money back, and I demand, or they can replace the lathe. Those are the only two options. Either the lathe is replaced with a unit that is completely checked to make sure there's none of that, or a mismilled spindle, and that the motor doesn't cut out and the button doesn't fly off. And generally speaking, if the lathe was okay and it didn't have the spindle deficiency, and the circuit board wasn't cutting out, I could deal with it. Okay, but no, the seller committed fraud. Okay, Amazon accepted that fraud, and between Amazon and the seller, they both decided to cover for each other, where neither side would accept any liability whatsoever. And as I pointed out to this agency, the A to Z team didn't look at all the conversations between me and the seller, did not look at my efforts to get the seller to send me the parts. The seller offered the parts, wanted photos, changed their minds, and then changed their minds again, then changed their minds again, and then agreed to send me the parts from the factory. Just last week they agreed. And then I called them back because I didn't receive an email from them, and they changed their minds again and told me to go back to Amazon. Okay, so it's Amazon and the seller. It's my position they did this together. Okay, and that's all there is to it. I had no claim with the A to Z team, as I've explained before. The A to Z team was informed officially by Amazon customer service through a message from me to them. That I dictated to the Amazon customer service agent that the communications between me and the A to Z team were being interrupted intentionally by a hacker who was cutting off my internet signal, which caused them to close my claim. Okay, that's what happened, and they shouldn't have done that, and they knew. So what's happened here is the A to Z team is a bunch of corrupted flunkies that don't like me, okay? And I'm telling you, that's what happened. And they deliberately used the fact that my Gmail is being hacked and my internet's being cut off by a hacker, and they used that as an excuse to deny my claim because they didn't receive my responses. And this was reported to them. So there's a groupie in Amazon. Let's destroy Mr. Fitzgerald, and let's just screw him real good along with the seller. Listen, folks, no matter how you cut it, that's what happened. Now, I did, to this agency, they asked me about, at the end of my filing with them online, at the end of it, they make this statement about sending attachments and photos. So I actually directed them to kindly give me a break on that. I worked for days trying to send videos to Amazon. It just would not work. I just could not send the packages. Plus, I was being billed to upload them from my phone to Gmail Drive. Okay, and I found the uploads were taking a very long time for some of the longer videos that I was going to send, and the data cost is quite high. So I decided to opt out of that. I did get the spindle photo to Amazon. They send me back a response of, oh, well, you're missing a part. You have to deal with the seller. Okay, so They lied about that. I gave them an explanation of the spindle. I sent them the photo, told them the lathe was used, and they send me back this bullshit message that you're missing a part. It's just a cover-up by Amazon. And also I'd like to indicate that Amazon's customer service agents knew that the claim that I was disputing the fact that the A to Z claim wrongfully closed my case file, okay? That they did that with intent, okay? And I informed them. And the thing here is every time I called them, they would give the seller 48 hours notice on a message. Then I would call Amazon. They would tell me, oh, call us back if the seller does not respond. This is like within the last 2 weeks, knowing that my A to Z claim, the original one, was canceled by the A to Z team, okay? And so when I would call back after they would leave the seller a message after 48 hours, they turn around and they'll say to me, oh, well, I'm going to file a claim on this, right? So they try to file a claim and then they come back to me on the phone and say, oh, my computer won't let me file the claim. When they should have turned around immediately and said, well, you filed a claim already and your 30 days is expired and therefore you can't file a claim. Well, why did they keep trying to file a claim? Why would they leave messages to the seller to cooperate? And they have 48 hours to do so, and for me to call them back if there's nothing that they could have done. So there's garbage here. So number one, the seller has committed fraud by not honoring the warranty that's indicated in the manual. Mind you, in the manual is from the UK. And it says that the Chester company has to be contacted by me in order to determine whether warranty parts will be supplied. But the seller in Toronto, ASE 365 International, who are not in the UK, are telling me they make the decision on the warranty. This lathe is from the UK. And it came with a manual from a company in the UK that sells it retail to British citizens. That's what's happened here. And I have the evidence here. I've got the manual. I've got proof. So what's Amazon going to do? Okay, what are they going to do, right? They tried to cover up a corrupted criminal act. Fraud is criminal. Advertising fraud. A company that advertises a warranty, and if they don't advertise it in their ad and it's in the manual that comes with the lathe, okay, then whoever is taking charge of the decision of warranty parts has to take responsibility for that warranty, okay? So ASC 365 International took possession legally of this lathe and the warranty that was provided in the manual by this foreign company in the UK. Why on earth, for example, would a company in the UK, okay, send shipments of these lathes to Toronto, Canada, okay, to be sold here by an international ASC 365, and the customer has to contact the UK Chester office to have warranty parts sent overseas at a very high cost for shipping to the buyer. So this one here came from the UK. Okay, it was shipped to Toronto from the UK, and it's used, and they sold it to me, and that's my update. God bless. Have a nice day. Hopefully, this agency, as I've asked them to look at my videos on YouTube, I gave them both my name and the lathe and defective lathe routine, defective WM210V. So hopefully, something good will come of this. I don't know. So we'll see. I know that it's a pretty serious case because the problem is the case opens up a can of worms about business corruption and Amazon's headquarters protecting corrupted companies and giving them cover with excuses, nothing but garbage excuses to the buyer. The warranty is part of the sale. Now, I will indicate to people who watch this video that I would have never bought this lathe from Amazon or eBay or anywhere else unless there is a warranty on parts for at least 6 months, because Chinese lathes often have defective parts that have to be replaced by the warranty. God bless.